Now for the capacity of prisms. In order to find the capacity of a rectangular prism, you're going to have to first know the volume, or at the very least, you're going to have to know the dimensions of that rectangular prism so that you can find the volume. Once you've gotten the volume, you're going to also need to know the dimensions or the volume of the cubes that you are using. Once you find the volume of the large rectangular prism that you want to know the capacity of, and you know the capacity of the smaller sized cubes that you are using to measure the volume, you are going to be dividing your larger volume by your smaller volume. I understand that that's a whole lot to take in, so let's jump back to those examples we saw earlier. And before you ask, yes, I do know how to spell examples. Why do I choose to spell it funny? Because I don't like spelling things normal. So in our earlier examples, we had a rectangular prism with the dimensions of 8 meters by 3 meters by 5 meters. We also had a cube that was 4 meters squared. We now know that we want to know how many cubes that measure half a meter can fit inside of both of these prisms. We'll start with our rectangular prism. Earlier, we discovered that the total volume was 120 meters cubed. That was the total volume. We knew that. We also know that the total volume of this cube came out to 64 meters squared. 64 meters cubed. I meant cubed. Now we gotta find the volume of a cube that is only half a meter on either side. So we're gonna take 1/2, multiply it by 1/2 again, and then multiply that by 1/2 again. Half of half of half. If you were to work all this out and take 1/2, multiply it by 1/2, and multiply that by 1/2, you should come out to 1/8. All right? The volume of a cube that is half a meter on either side is going to come out to having a volume of 1/8 of a meter inside of it. That's how many cubic meters can fit inside of that sort of cube. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 1/8 cubic meters, 1/8 cubic meters for our capacity. Once again, 1/8 meters cubed for our capacity. And we are going to divide our volume by our smaller cubes in order to get our capacity. That means, for this problem here, we are doing 120 divided by 1/8 of a meter cubed. So we'll set up this problem. 120 divided by 1/8. You're going to have to keep, change, and flip. What that means is we are going to keep that first fraction exactly the same. That's 120, which is the same as 120 over 1. You're going to change your division into multiplication, and you're going to flip your other fraction, 1/8, to get 8 over 1. Now our problem has become 120 times 8. If you were to work out that problem, 120 times 8, you're going to get an answer of 960 cubes. Okay? What I mean by cubes, and I know I've been dancing around this question and haven't answered it officially. What we are finding when we are doing this problem is we are finding out exactly how many cubes that measure about half a meter can fit inside of this prism. That's what we're finding. If we assumed that each one of these smaller squares inside of this box are going to equal about half a meter on either edge, then we can assume that there are going to be 960 of half cubic cubes fitting inside of this prism. That's what we're finding whenever we solve these types of problems. Back over to this cube, we have 64 meters as our volume, and we have 1/8 meters for our capacity. Once again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do 64 meters divided by 1/8 meters. Of course, we have to remember that since this is a division of fractions, we are going to use keep, change, flip. 64 over 1 multiplied by 8 over 1 is going to give me a capacity of 512 cubes being able to fit inside this box. Now that we're feeling a little bit more comfortable and are pretty much done with notes as far as this section is concerned, let's jump over to some more practice problems. Let's start things off easy, shall we? Let's go ahead and simply find the volume of this box. Take a moment and pause the video right here, and I'll let you work this out. Remember, to find the volume of a cube or a rectangular prism, no matter the dimensions, you're going to have to do length times width times height. And this is all being measured in cubic units. I'll count to 3, and in that time, you're going to need to pause this video. 1, 2, 3. All right, time's up. Did you get 20 inches cubed? If not, go back and double check your multiplication. If you did anything other than multiplication, you probably weren't paying attention earlier when I mentioned that it's just length times width times height. If you need help multiplying fractions, again, go back and check out that other video where I went over multiplying and dividing fractions. Now let's throw a capacity problem at you. Keep in mind, once again, you're going to have to first find the volume of your larger rectangular prism. Then you're going to have to find the volume of the smaller cubes that you are using to measure the inside of that prism. Then you are going to divide your volume by your smaller cube's volume. I'll give you another moment. I'll count to 3, and you're going to have to use those 3 seconds to pause this video and work this out. I even left the multiple choice answers here for you, so that way you kind of have a basis to go off of. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, and your time is up. Were you able to get a final answer of 108? Let me explain it really quick if you didn't. If you got something else, you likely missed these 2 steps as well. The volume of this larger shape right here that has a length of 4.5, a width of 2, and a height of 1.5 has a volume of 13.5 cubic inches. The capacity, using these smaller cubes measuring the insides of that prism, is going to have a capacity of about 1/8 of an inch. What you had to do was you had to take 13.5 and divide that by 1/8. And that would have given you an answer of 108. How about this one? These numbers might be a little tricky to see, so you may want to pause and maybe make this go to full screen and increase the resolution. So this problem's a little bit different. You're going to have to read through it and work out what it's trying to ask. A girl builds a rectangular prism out of wooden cubes. She used 50 cubes that each measure 1/2 inch on each edge. What is the volume in cubic inches of the rectangular prism she builds? This is a little different than before. Try to work it out on your own, and then I'll explain. I'll go ahead and count to 3 so you can pause it. 1, 2, 3. What this problem was trying to ask you to do was it wanted you to multiply 50 times the volume of these smaller cubes. So you find the volume, which half times half times half. If you recall from our previous examples, it has typically been 1/8. So we're going to be multiplying 50 cubes by 1/8, which should look a little like this. That will give me 50 over 8, which at this point, all you really have to do is simplify that as much as you can to get a final answer of 6 1/4, which, if you are able to see the answer choices, would be B. All right, last question I'm going over with you. Sharon has a cake that measures 7.5 inches wide, 13 inches long, and 1.5 inches tall. She cut pieces of the cake that measure 1 1/2 inches on each side. How many pieces of cake does Sharon have? I'll count to 3, pause the video, solve it. 1, 2, 3. And that's all there is to it. Anyways, this has been Mr. A. Have a nice night.